This weekend has flown by, hasn't it? Well, we're here to send you off with some expert marketing advice and hopefully a lot of inspiration. So let's dive in. How exactly will we know when the influencer bubble has burst? Or has it already? Ever since social media stars came on the scene, they've become an integral part of our marketing strategies, regardless of what industry you're in. As a rapidly changing industry itself, odds are the ways we market our services and products today will be drastically different than they are in 6 months or even a year. So, how do we all stay ahead of the curve? Luckily, we're here to talk with 3 powerhouse women about the new wave of marketing trends to expect and their thoughts on the future of influencers. I'm so happy to introduce, we have Cynthia Rowley. Yay!
Thank you.
Who created her own eponymous brand in 1988, and since then, she's consistently found a way to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to tech and social, most recently with her first ever podcast called Ageless, which she hosts with her daughter, Kit, who's here today. Yay, Kit. Then we have Deborah, yay. Woo! Who's the CMO of Sephora Americas and previously their VP of Marketing. She has been at the company for 7 years and has played a key role in their pivot towards personalized beauty experiences. And finally, last but not least, we have Fabiola Torres. She is the VP of Global Marketing at Beats and the previous Senior Director of Global Brand Marketing at Nike. She is a strong proponent of building authentic consumer relationships through storytelling, community, and social media. So my first question, what was your first role in marketing ever, and what was the most surprising thing that you learned about it? You have the mic?
Okay, I guess my first role in marketing was self-promotion and still is. I think it's important to really have the confidence, to put yourself out there and the confidence in what you are creating and be proud and show the world and in whatever omni-channel way that might be.
Okay. My first job in marketing was a little bit of an accident. My first role out of college was for a consulting company and think tank, and I joined their strategy and finance practice and was in it for about a year when they opened up a marketing practice and invited me to come over and be an analyst, and I figured, well, it sounds a little bit more interesting than what I'm doing right now, so yeah, sign me up for that. That was my first job in marketing.
Cool.
My first job at marketing was media buy and strategy. It was quite interesting because I was just pushed into that role right after college as well. I learned so much and buying media and communicating with consumers through mass media. That was kind of the first role.
And now we are here to talk a lot about pre- and post-marketing strategy, or pre- and post-influencer marketing strategy. So what are some of the biggest differences that you have seen since social media stars came on the scene?
Social media has been a rise in the last few years, but it's becoming your editorial magazine. It's just as part of your life, and I don't find anybody that can live without social media right now because it's just it's at your fingertips, and it's a way that we connect with each other. We connect with the community that you care more than the people that you know. So it's just it's an interesting tool. It's an interesting way of life, and for us, from a brand perspective, is we truly respect the channel.
With social media, there's no hiding. So all of a sudden, there is a world that is more transparent than ever, and it really allows us to see into a brand in a way that we've never been able to see before. At Sephora, we find it super exciting too because it also has invited more people into the conversation. So all of a sudden, you don't need to be a celebrity or a rock star or a fashion icon, no offense, to be present in social. And now we can hear from the consumer directly as well as all kinds of different people.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that it's really about creating a conversation and a narrative and storytelling and finding people that you find authentic, for us, to our brand, that we trust in their narrative and their lifestyle, and that they're speaking to their audience and presenting our stuff in the way that their audience is going to relate to it best.
Right. And like I mentioned in the intro, there's a lot of speculation that the influencer bubble is about to burst or might have bursted already, especially after we hear about stories like the influencer with millions of followers who was only able to sell 30-something pieces of her clothing collection. When will we know that that bubble has burst, or do you think that's not what's going on here right now?
Well, I mean, I think it's definitely moving for sure into micro and nano influencers, and I think that's really cool. I think the engagement is so much more, and I think when we think about influencers and who we want to work with, the number of followers is very low on the list of what we're looking for. It's really their quality of their work that they're putting out and engagement.
I think as marketers, we get the tools that are a reflection of maybe two things. One is the platforms that exist, and the other is the culture that's out in the world. So, I think influencers are a product of both of those things. I don't see the platforms shifting. I mean, they evolve and innovate, and we want to keep up with that innovation. I think that the role that influencers plays is also shifting over time. We come to ask for, just with them, greater transparency and authenticity in a way that I think many of them are meeting, and those that don't, I think, may recede in prominence. But I think there's a viable role still for influencers to play in the marketing toolkit.
I agree. So there's so many people that claim to be influencer right now in the world of music, culture, fashion. I think it's about authenticity, as you said. It's about, yes, making sure that the engagement and the conversation, as you said, but it's about making sure that we talk to the right people, and the right people had the credibility around everybody as a community. I think they have to be leaders. They have to make sure that they open the doors to new things and to the future of things. I think to be claimed to be an influencer is a lot of weight on their shoulders, and I think everybody can say that they're influencers because the amount of followers. We believe that it's not just the amount of followers; it's the authenticity and the leaders that they can be, and they can actually be trailblazers in a lot of ways.
Wait, can I just say about the 36 pieces?
Yeah, please. We'd love to
I
hear
think
that.
there's it really, just because you have a lot of followers and you put something on doesn't mean it's going to sell. I think it's really in the end, it's all about the product. And if the product is amazing, it almost, you can be the smallest influencer or the largest influencer, but it has to be really beautiful, great product, or no one can sell it.
Right. So you all mentioned the word authenticity at some point when talking.
Should be a drinking game.
Yeah.
Marketing drinking game alerts.
The girl boss way to do it. You all mentioned authenticity in terms of what you are looking for, whether it's micro influencers or macro influencers. You're looking for thought leaders. And I'm curious what that looks like specifically for each of your brands. What does our audience need to know about the type of influencer that you are excited to work with?
It's a tough question because at Beats by Dre, we're looking for emerging artists or for cultural leaders, for people that kind of start with an idea that brings through those pillars of fashion, music, culture. So it depends. It depends on the project. It depends on the market. When we talk about global marketing, when we talk about the community that is around that person. So it is a lot of credibility within their network as well. So, and it doesn't matter the age. I think sometimes we claim to say, hey, it has to be young to be Gen Z because Gen Z follows their peers and everything. I think it's all about what the project is about and the credibility that they bring to certain projects, certain things that you're looking for. So it's a hard question to answer to be so specific. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Actually, what I think is really cool about most social media is that it is ageless. Like, you don't know how old anyone is.
Exactly.
Like, it's not, it's not about age at all. It's about a beautiful image, no matter what age you are. And I think that's, I love that idea.
Okay.
Yeah. What we're looking for from an influencer standpoint, in terms of thought leadership, is a reflection of our own community, our own consumers. So I'll give you an example. We actually just put together a squad of about 28 mid-tier influencers. And in the process of selecting those influencers, we actually moved away from the traditional metric of looking at people's following and just pure clout, and instead asked those applicants to really kind of hear from their communities. And we wanted to understand what it is about their content that resonated with their communities in turn. And so it actually gave us a bit of a mirror to understand, okay, what does our client really want to engage in? What kind of voices do they want to hear in beauty? So, our filter becomes, yes, like, what can the influencer bring to the conversation across a number of dimensions, but to some extent, a little bit of a reflection of the conversation that, our consumers are having in beauty. And we found that to be super meaningful in terms of selection.
And I think if I can say something else, just to your point, is collaborator. I think the beauty of really working with a true influencer that brings something to the table is not just about that relationship or that partnership of work, but really being immersed into the project and making sure that they actually feel your brand, they understand what you're looking for, and they're part of a bigger thing in terms of really, truly collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's amazing that you can collaborate with influencers and collaborate with people and put stuff out there that, that's really bringing their, like, why am I the authority on, designing something? You know what I mean? Like, I think it's a great way to stay curious and stay fresh and stay really inspired and energized by working with other people on everything. But also in terms of like our products, we go from like pretty dresses to like the most badass sweatsuits. And so it's kind of exciting to see a very diverse group of people, that are able to put their spin on it.
And when we talk about influencers and we talk about marketing, Instagram is obviously at the forefront of that conversation, but how important do you think it is for a brand to diversify the content that they're putting out into the world? So should we be focusing on one platform in particular, or should we be trying to gain audiences across the board?
We still believe in a 360 approach, multiple consumer touch points. Yes, you can always leave an Instagram or stories right now or anything that could actually caught your eye. But at the end of the day, it's the type of content and the type of message that we want to send. It may not be just Instagram ready all the time. So it's just still 360-degree consumer touch point. It just varies by consumer type, what type of channel marketing we use, channel strategy.
Yeah, we believe in 360 too. I guess my advice, though, to earlier stage brands and founders is if you're going to do something, like, do it well. We actually just had a conversation. Another person was in the green room, and we were talking a little bit about podcasts. And podcasts actually is an area where Sephora has chosen to collaborate. We've chosen to collaborate with content creators like Girl Boss to really get our voice out there in podcasts. But we've actually not entered into the space of creating one ourselves yet. And then partly it was just because we didn't have time and the ability to really focus on it yet to do it in the right way. And so I think, like with everything in life, you got to figure out how to use your energies. And if you're going to enter a platform, you need to do it in a meaningful way and make sure that you're prepared to, have the two-way dialogue and really be engaged in the work that you do there.
Okay, I would say yes, but I would also say that you should try it. Anybody can do it. Like, you're a big brand, but if you're not a big brand, everybody should just get out there and do what they, put as much out there as you can, because you never know what's gonna stick. And I think, for us being in a fashion company, it's very visual. But it's important that the clothes create a narrative, and the photography and everything creates a narrative. And so we felt that we wanted a podcast just to, actually have a storytelling moment. And it's really small until you guys all start listening. But it's really small. But you know what? It takes a lot to, get your voice and everything. And so to me, it was just a sort of verbal component to the visuals that we're already doing.
And let's talk a little bit more about storytelling and authentic storytelling. Where does real life, in real time storytelling come into place, like activations and events that you're able to engage with your community in real time?
We love events, and we do, it has to be fun. It has to be a really fun experience. We'll never do a flower wall that you're gonna stand in front of. We have a surf camp in 2 weeks where we take a bunch of influencers to Montauk and we actually teach them how to surf. And we have a skate camp coming up with a skate company we collaborated on. And to me, it's really if we're gonna ask people to join us in something, we want them to either learn something or have the most fun they've had,
And do you design an experience like that? Social media is top of your list.
I mean, it has to be both, it has to be, and it has to be authentic. So I'm gonna be surfing with them, and
Okay.
Yeah.
probably skating, although
She walks the walk.
next time you see me with with 2 casts on my legs. No, I just think it doesn't have to involve me, but it has to be authentic to our brand, and I think that just naturally creates great content.
Yeah. I love the topic of storytelling. It's one of those kind of old school things that's suddenly cool again to talk about in marketing. My mind went to actually campaign work. Sephora just launched a new brand platform called We Belong to Something Beautiful. And the inspiration for the first chapter of the campaign was actually a story that we had heard from one of our clients. It was a story of an 11-year-old boy who was gender creative and really enjoying makeup and was getting bullied in school. And he found that the place where he felt most kind of at home was Sephora. And we just found the story amongst all the different kind of blurbs that we see out there. And we were like, okay, that. And so we brought him into the campaign, which really kind of put a whole campaign around that narrative. We turned that into secondary content. We started telling stories of our employees and other clients who are navigating a gender journey. And then it created more stories because our consumer wanted to tell their stories as well. So what was cool about that is when you start with story, you can actually generate even more stories. And we're finding it's a part of our practice that becomes its own, beautiful circle.
I love that.
So storytelling for us is at the core of our brand. You know, as a music brand, it's always whether you get inspired in a real story, you get inspired on our own products, you get inspired on music, and we kind of find the combination and balance of everything to make sure that we're real. We are the most or the high performance product for that particular campaign that we're actually launching. Like we just launched Power Beats Pro, is our new wireless headphone, and it's sports and fitness, and we portrayed the top 10 athletes in the world. Having said that, we said, you know what, from a storytelling perspective, we don't want to show them perfect. They have their journeys, they have their breakdowns, they train a lot to kind of race for victory. So it's just a little bit of that is really important in the journey. And from a sport music brand, we always claim to do that and make sure that we're real. We show the real consumers that can have that dream to be that athlete that they see in TV and content and the stories, and we're very passionate about it, and we want to continue doing those real life stories and making sure that the consumer really engage and connect with us that way.
You have surfers? Any surfers doing?
We have a couple, yes.
This is now with the Olympics.
Exactly.
It's exciting.
And skaters, yes.
We're sensing a collaboration happening.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
Waterproof beats.
Sorry?
Waterproof beats.
Working on it.
You heard it here first, I guess, huh?
Working on it. Yeah.
I'm curious how having consumers functioning as content creators has changed your approach to marketing. Are you for it? Are you against it? And how do you keep your own brand very tight and differentiated when you do include consumer-created content?
I can start, if you don't mind. It's just, you know, as a young brand, and I always tell my team, you know, we're just an 11-year-old kid because this brand only existed for 11-year-olds. And so when we think at a 10 and 11-year-old, which I have two at home, you have a smile on your face because they have the future and the life in front of them. So we believe that as a brand, as a very young brand, we have to enable our young creators, right? We have to put the tools out there. And we have put studios in New York to produce music. We have put record shops in Tokyo to come and DJing with us and to, you name it, from the lens of social media, YouTube, product reviewers. We do believe in the power of the consumer and the content creation and the power of the mind and creating things for the brand that they care. I think if we're in that portfolio, the share wallet for the consumers and for the young consumers, which is where our target consumer is, we're winning, you know. And I think is the brands, and my previous brand it was always about how do we make sure that the consumer care enough about us to create their own things about the brand. And I think as a brand, we always try to provide tools for those consumers to create their own and have their own interpretation of our brand.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's super exciting to be able to have people create content on your behalf, authentically, organically, paid, all of the above. I mean, you know, you've got an incredible brand when people start wanting to tell your story or get engaged with your product. It's always just like beginning of signs to look for. It changes how we have to think about our roles as marketers, though. You know, we're not necessarily creators ourselves in those cases. We're actually editors, we're curators, and we have to trust. And so it's a bit of, you know, holding your breath a little bit to just make sure that it feels, you know, right. And, you know, creators are human beings. They have real lives and make mistakes and may not say things that are perfectly on your style guide, but you have to be okay with that. And that's why you brought them into your family to begin with. It just sort of changes the attitude a little bit in-house of how you see your kind of formal produced work sitting side by side with stuff coming from the consumer. But, you know, it actually, in the end, it just makes your small family even bigger.
Absolutely.
I mean, I just love seeing what everyone does with the clothes, and that's a learning experience for me.
Yeah. So, in terms of marketing trends, what do you see for the future? The rest of 2019, 2020, what are some of the most disruptive marketing strategies that you see on the horizon?
We always, look for something new and different, and we know we have the world of TikTok now. We have the amazing tools that Instagram and Facebook bring us. But I think that the main tools that exist right now will continue in 2020. I think as brands, we have to be able to try something new and not look for the establishment, because the younger you are, the more creative you are, the less time you spend in one platform. So we have 8 seconds, 10 seconds with a consumer every time they see us, and we have to be smart about selecting and trying new things as brands. So we encourage our tech creators, our platform creators to always bring something new, and we're a brand that we're willing to try something new because the consumers are that way.
I listened to your question, and, the traditional marketer in me says, oh my God, 2019 is like kind of over already. Like, I'm already on to 2020, but that's actually, then there's the contemporary marketer in me that says actually the most exciting thing that's going to happen in marketing in 2019 is going to be probably a reaction or a response to things that are happening here and now. That's the cool thing about the practice, right? Like, great marketing says, oh my God, there's incredible narrative happening in the news right now. How do I actually tap into that and jump on that trend? So we have to live in both time horizons, I suppose. I don't know what the answer is going to be and what's going to be really exciting in the back half of 2019, but I'm guessing it's going to be something that was a response to 2019.
Totally.
I mean, I would say, I think the respect for smaller influencers has definitely increased so much, which is amazing. And then as far as maybe just a vibe, I do think more kind of less polished visuals and humor in things, I feel, coming
I
up.
agree. I think the real things are on. We're looking to our own creative, not be too perfect, making sure that the visual center of it looks like it was created by a certain individual instead of a high-end agency. Yeah. And I think the real response the response on real time is really important. I think when you talk about content creation and things and engagement, the brands that are really responsive are the ones that continue that conversation with the consumer. And I think that the trend continue to be there, to go there.
Okay, do you have any final advice for entrepreneurs who are just getting started in the marketing game?
I would say, it's just try new things, propose new things, put your brand out there, and I think as we said, social media is so open and so platform-based that you don't need to put so many marketing dollars behind a big campaign to create your own brand. I think what you have to build is a trust on that consumer and that relationship to continue build and expand your network and your community. I think I have an entrepreneur at home, so it's just it's not easy, and I totally get that. But I think when you're a creator or creative, it's really important to keep trying new things and get to know the right people to get you into that type of network and community.
I think there are only 2 golden rules in marketing. One is don't market crap, and the other one is to love your customer. So I'm going to talk about the don't market crap just briefly, because you're all founders and you're creating your product and your offering. So hopefully you're doing it because you believe in the product. So I'm going to set that aside for a second and talk a little bit about the love your customer part, which is the best marketing is just something that has your customer at the center. So hang out where she hangs out, follow the social media that she follows, be there, and don't think about your consumer as something, to be pitied or sorry for. Really live in her life, and it's never going to go wrong. It's the best marketing advice, timeless, that you can follow wherever you are in your career.
I would totally agree and add that like finding smaller people and creating a loyal relationship, and then you take each other up all along the way, and you know, having a community like that where you're lifting each other up, I think is important. And to go to a lot of things like this, where people are talking about ideas and sharing ideas.
So if you have a question, please line up on either side of the stage. You'll see a microphone. But in the meantime, we have a question from the Girl Boss Network.
No.
This is from Angel S. Do you find that marketing trends precede or follow consumer trends? And how can we as marketers be able to forecast trends so we aren't left behind?
So the question is following trends or creating trends? It's more like around that.
Are trends more consumer-led, or do marketers create the trends? I think is what she's asking.
I think today is consumer-led. I personally feel like it's consumer-led because those platforms or even the YouTube channels, things that we're looking at, if the consumer really didn't vote for that, yeah, marketers can create the platform, but if the consumers really didn't engage, the trends wouldn't continue, you know, we'll just stop and die there. Like so many things back in the early 2000s, some things that created and start there and died, you know. I think we live in a society, in a world that is consumer-led, yeah, especially for marketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that marketing tends to follow the consumer trend. What marketing does really well, though, is like bring it to a sharp point, right? Like it's like, you know, like, okay, there's a lot of noise, now let's actually tell a narrative
sharper,
around it.
yeah.
And, you know, it's sort of an amplification. I mean, marketing amplifies things that exist in the world, right? That's what we do. And so if there's something happening in the world of the consumer landscape, a great marketing team is able to find it and bring it to a sharp point.
Yeah. Or have a point of view, you know?
Yeah,
it's just
totally.
from a brand perspective, you create a point of view and you bring the attention of the consumer. If you're right or wrong, they will actually tell you right away, but definitely, yes.
Awesome. Do we have our first question?
Hi, my name is Lauren Mims, and I'm, I guess, a micro-influencer. I've got a little less than 20,000 followers. And my main question is, reach on Instagram in the last few weeks has, like, significantly dropped for a lot of people. And, but generally speaking, my influence sphere isn't just Instagram. I've got a nonprofit of 1,600 women who are super tapped into the kind of information that I'm sharing because it's valuable. I'm wondering, what's the best way to go about kind of showcasing that whole sphere so that brands can understand that Instagram really isn't just the only way that I'm getting that message out there, and really show the value that while, yes, Instagram is maybe the leading audience of where I'm putting that content out, I have a bigger sphere that is maybe more impactful on Facebook.
Who is your target audience?
Well, I guess primarily women in the 24 to 34 range. I live in Colorado, so Colorado area primarily, but outdoor adventure lifestyle is primarily what I post, and a lot of women empowerment. I'm a PR specialist.
I would say it's just, you know, it's different by market, but definitely what we use and we recommend is both platforms. I think Instagram gives you the instant gratification, the stories, the dynamic views that Facebook doesn't. But Facebook can give you a little bit more kind of horizontal view, if I said, through the community, and more time. The people that browse Facebook have more time for some reason, and can spend a little bit more time with you. I would say my advice would be is just be in both platforms. Try to kind of create a little bit more content of that storytelling that we were talking about, where you can actually explain a little bit more, and don't duplicate the content in both platforms. Take your time to do a little bit different in Facebook. What would you put in Instagram? Because people will notice. And I think when you try to do the same in two platforms, it tends to kind of not alienate with the consumer. So just try to kind of diversify.
Awesome.
Also, maybe partnering with places that would enjoy that content, like online travel destinations or more lifestyle, you know, partnering with other people that would be looking for that content too.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck.
Hi, my name's Kayla, an aspiring CMO. But right now I work mostly in like loyalty, CMR kind of side of things. And I'm just curious, like within your guys' companies, how do you build that relationship between the brand team and the more like below the line team? Something I'm struggling with, just like making sure it's like a total cohesive message as like departments start to get really big.
I think getting pretty aligned on what your goals are as a brand is always, super important. It's like, what is the one metric that matters that we are driving towards? Whether or not it's top of the funnel or bottom of the funnel, we all agree that, let's just say, increasing lifetime value with the following different actions, is important. Get people to download your app and get people to sign up for your loyalty program. It's a story that everyone in the organization can get behind if you can articulate it in a way that actually is, focused on the customer. So I think goals is the first place to go. And then the second thing is just like make people and encourage people to bump into each other. So if you're working on the CRM side of the organization, do you run into people at the water cooler from the brand side of the house? And are you talking about what you're working on? You will oftentimes find allies across the fence that you didn't know you ever had before. And that's just partnership and team 101 stuff. And it's a delightful part of marketing that we actually get to house all types of people with lots of different types of skills who can answer problems in different ways. So
And maybe involve some cocktails somewhere along
yes. Better answer. I said water and you went to cocktail.
Oh, and I would say if you put the consumer in the middle and you really work through that lens, you find the inspiration and motivation in one side, and the other is the consideration and conversion, right? But you want that full funnel for the consumer, and I think if you add the water and the drinks, you'll be set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have time for one more.
Okay. Hi, I'm a little short. I'm Amy. My question is, I know that you guys were mentioning that you think that it's micro-influencers in the way that the influencer marketing is going. I personally saw that it was the macro influencers that was working because people felt like, they related to them, they were friends, and then they started doing a lot of sponsorships, so people didn't trust them. So then it got into the micro influencers because they're like, these people are smaller, they're not getting paid. So now that the micro influencers are getting the hashtag ad, hashtag sponsored, where do you think the relationship brand influencer is going to be? Because don't you think that the audience again is going to get exhausted with sponsored content?
We find that consumers are generally accepting and open as long as there's transparency.
Exactly.
So, we actually did a research study recently at Sephora that kind of asked consumers, how do you define friends? And there was a surprising number of people who actually said, a friend is someone who I work with and interact with and, communicate with in person on a regular basis. But a surprising number also said, a friend can also be somebody whose content that I see on a regular basis or somebody whose opinion I trust. So I think as long as, influencers are meeting standards of transparency and honesty, it's interesting to see consumers are actually willing to tolerate an understanding that there was a brand somehow involved in the creation of that content. So we'll see how it evolves, but that's kind of what we're seeing at this point.
I think the consumers are smarter and smarter, right? And they pick and choose what they like and what they don't, and they get canceled or they get accepted. So it's a little bit of that evolution of being trustworthy and they're careless, they really get you or don't get you or accept you, and they move really fast. I think in the micro influencers, I believe that is authenticity. It's about making sure that person remains really, really pure in terms of what their intentions in the brands that are actually partnering with, and that could grow into converting into a macro influencers and bring the consumers and the trends with.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for all that amazing insight.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the rally, everybody.